Love. I'm in. Let's go eat. I'm on a seafood diet. I see food, I eat it. Pum, where's Jude? I've been hanging out with Jude too long, right? But seriously, what more do you need to hear? Love. What more do you need to do? To be? I hope you all read Reverend Chris's email letter this week, where he told us that February is the month of Black history and forgiveness and love. The greatest of all of these is love. So, February is also the month where we celebrate that innate spiritual power in us of strength. And we need that strength. After we celebrated faith in January, we celebrate strength. So, like me, I think if you went to the Bible looking for a story, a good Bible story on strength, you'd quickly come to David and Goliath. And wouldn't God have it that David, metaphysically, stands for divine love in human consciousness. David was vulnerable. You remember King Saul didn't want to let this young boy that had been out to bring supplies to his brothers who were out fighting the Philistines. And when David heard that this Goliath Philistine was taunting the Israelites, David said to Saul, "Let me go." And Saul said, "No." But David insisted. So Saul said, "Okay, but take this suit of armor. Defend yourself." But David put it on and it didn't fit. He knew that he had the spiritual strength of the Lord on his side. He didn't need that defensiveness, that shield to protect him. The Lord would protect him. And so he went out against that giant Philistine, and he perceived, and Goliath can be said to be that part of us, as all these characters in the Bible are aspects of ourselves. And that Goliath ego that depends on the material world, that has no perception of the strength of the Lord within. And David saw where he could, with that mere stone and slingshot, Goliath's weak point, center of his forehead. And so he slew the giant. Divine love conquered ego. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. I wanted to take up, remember when Reverend Chris shared with us last Sunday about the prodigal son. So the question is, what would that hypothetical prodigal son in the New Testament have learned from 1 Samuel and David in the Old Testament? You remember Reverend Chris set the scene for us with the Pharisees, that part of us that self-righteous and judgmental, it puts form over substance, has found religion and then thinks that that's the right religion and everyone should follow. But there are so many paths. One God, but so many paths to that infinite good. And so the Pharisees think Jesus' words are inconsequential because he sits with sinners. David was a Christ figure. Jesus came from the house of David. Just as David was vulnerable and stood for love, so did Jesus do that. And his genius in speaking to the Pharisees is really displayed in this elder brother that he creates in the parable. So picking up where Reverend Chris left off, and I remember you saying there's a bit more here. Meanwhile, the elder brother was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. "Your brother has come," he replied, "and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat, so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." Notice how that father, Jesus loved to refer to the infinite good in which we live and which lives in us as Father. So the prodigal son returns to the Father. This adventuresome one, right? That probably meant no harm, but ends up with swine. He comes home vulnerable, admitting his wrong and asking for the Father's love. And of course, the Father bestows that. That indwelling good in us can always be returned to. And then we see this aspect of ourselves, this one that is not so sure that those that engage in folly should be received back. Music and dancing and the fattened calf. The fattened calf stands for the strength that is always available to the needy when they reach out. I identify with this elder brother. When I was a teenager, I was actually the younger sister. My older sister hopped a train, headed for California, because she and my father, who I actually think had much the same temperaments, would feud. My father felt that acceptable dating age for his daughters, his 3 daughters, was 16. Well, at 14, my sister felt it was appropriate dating age for her. So her potential beaux, instead of coming to our front door, would come to her bedroom window in the alley. Well, after my father found out about this, he took the belt to her. That was his form of discipline for his 3 daughters. But my sister, my older sister, caught most of the wrath. And so she goes off, and my parents, who didn't really know real well how to get along even in peaceful times, the house would be in an uproar when she was gone. They would be pointing fingers and angry and interrogating me and my younger sister, saying, "Do you know where she is?" And it would just be chaos. And then she was apprehended and returned. And there would be calm. My parents were, of course, so happy to have her back safe and sound. But me, I thought, dang, she gets to go out, have a great time, explore the world, the prodigal daughter. Meanwhile, I'm the good one, staying at home, minding my parents. And I got to go through all of their anger, their fear, their finger pointing, and then she comes home and, they give her a little slap on the hand, but basically, I suffer through all of the angst. So that elder brother is part of me and you in some form or fashion. All of us, these characters in the Bible. And we don't know how the story ends or how the elder brother reacts. We're left with just the father, the loving father, that sees the need to instruct the elder brother, much as that God that we turn to sees the need to instruct, but always embracing, forgiving, loving. February, the month of forgiveness as well as love. And so we always stand at choice, whether to turn. The soul is pivotal and can turn to God or can turn to the material. Can put our faith in that infinite, invisible good or in what we can touch and see. Whatever the appearance, there is always this good available. The Father goes out to that elder son and entreats him to come in, telling him, you are always with me. Everything I have is yours. Everything the Father has is yours. There was a Goliath of a storm here, not quite 6 months ago. You all remember that. And we stood at choice as to how to react. And certainly it's understandable when we say, why? Why do bad things happen to good people? Of course, water is cleansing, but still, this water didn't look cleansing. So we stand at choice at any time, any given circumstance for our perception. And certainly there is a time to grieve, to be angry. God's big enough for that, big enough to love us in that phase. But Reverend Chris, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, back in January, even though we celebrate Black History Month here in February, you remember in mid-January, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and Reverend Chris gave us the opportunity to live the truth that we know. He invited us to North Baton Rouge, where he is still doing work with Rebuild Together Baton Rouge. And it was such a privilege and an honor to serve with him. And other members of the congregation came out, our member visiting with Charmaine and Butch. And then Sue and Richard Phillips, who lost everything in the flood, came out to rebuild someone else's house. Vulnerable, loving, with that spiritual strength. Love is stronger even than death. Jesus showed that, proved that, didn't he? 2,000 years ago, this man lived. And even today, not only do we remember him, we talk to him. We find a friend in him. We gather together in his name and feel his presence in this sanctuary. And then we go out and do the work that he told us to do. With our physical strength, out there on Tioga Drive, we were mudding sheetrock and painting and carrying 12 by 12 tiles into houses for the flooring to be done. And it goes on. I asked Reverend Chris this morning, can we still participate? He said, yeah, we're out there still and for quite a while. We are always at choice and grateful for the opportunities. So who do you love? Don't wait till day after tomorrow to express it. Let them know today. Who do you need to forgive? Don't be that elder brother, or don't stay in. You know, there'll come challenges. They keep rolling in as long as we're in this human experience, right? They'll keep coming on for us to grow spiritually, to become that David with the spiritual strength to meet any physical challenge. So who do you need to forgive? Whose forgiveness might you need to ask? And if you really want a challenge, this is for advanced truth students, look in the mirror when you go home and say, I love you. I love you. That image and likeness of God that you are, God expressing in this world, God with skin on. That's the hardest challenge, I believe, for me, to look in the mirror and say, you're wonderful. I love you. That's what Jesus told us. The 3 commandments. Love the Lord your God. Love your neighbor as yourself. So, thank you so much. Amen. And now we sing, and then we eat.